It's me. Welcome to another Limbus Company ID overview. This update introduced the capstone ID for this season in Blade of the House of Spiders Ryōshū, a triple-aught ID that is a hybrid of Burn, Bleed, and Poise. Normally I like to say something like, this ID is a great addition to their archetype and solid in other places, but in this case, I don't feel the need to be coy about it. This is the best ID in the game as of right now. She deals more DPS than anyone else, frequently from the start of the fight, is functionally unkillable in most situations and literally unkillable in certain fights, and gets a bunch of extra attacks while she's at it. So with all that being said, let's get into her kit and see exactly why, and half of this is just going to be passive, so be ready for that. There is a ton to go over, but first we need to talk about two specific status effects in her kit, because there's no better place to do so, being Entanglement and Blade Trail Afterimage. Entanglement has a cap of 4 and does nothing on its own, but the minimum and maximum of it can be increased to 5 and 9 respectively over the course of a fight. Blade Trail Afterimage stacks up to 100 and makes the enemy take 1% more slash damage for every 10 stacks, but doesn't build up super quickly from any of her skills with one notable exception which we'll get to. And immediately, we'll jump into this monster of a general passive that describes her synergy with the other House of Spiders IDs. She starts battle with 0 String Severance and 0 Entanglement, though the min and max of Entanglement increase by 1 for every 3 House of Spider IDs in your current loadout, including herself. She has a natural unrelenting effect that keeps her from dropping below 1 HP once per encounter, and while other House of Spider IDs are on the field, whenever she gets hit, the one with the least HP will take the damage instead of her, giving her insane survivability if even one of them is present. But the real synergy is found when they are dead. In fact, she really wants to kill them. For every House of Spiders ally that is dead, not when one dies, but when one is dead, she gains 1 Entanglement, as well as gaining a unique effect based on which House of Spiders ID was killed, much like how Lord of Hangyan does after he combos with Heisho IDs. Additionally, for every 3 House of Spiders IDs that are dead, she gains an additional skill slot as long as no other units can substitute in as a backup. One quirk about this additional skill slot is that it can't give it to you unless you start the encounter with at least 1 backup unit, so a minimum of 8 IDs are required for her team, with 10 being optimal since that way you get the extra skill slot without needing to lose an entire unit for it. This is all regardless of the fact that there are only 7 House of Spider IDs right now, including her, but needless to say, additional skill slots on the highest DPS ID in the entire game is so good that it actually becomes worth it to get those allies killed, and you don't even have to rely on things like Fell Bullet and Magic Bullet to do it, but more on that later. All of the bonus effects from killing her allies are tucked under the String Severance effect. It stacks up to 4 and makes her take 7.5% less damage per stack, but it only increases when House of Spiders Nurse Father IDs are defeated, specifically, and you will want to kill them depending on the team. The effects she gains from killing specific members of the team range from incredibly strong to almost entirely useless, so let me present them to you from most useful to least useful. Ring Nurse Father Honglu gives Ryōshū Somatic Frisson-inspired Melody, which is 1 min and max speed, 1 clash power for base skills, and 10% damage for base skills. It is the best general increase her base skills receive from any of the effects granted from killing allies, so depending on what your team intends to do, killing Honglu should genuinely be a priority. Pinky Apprentice Sinclair gives 1 poise count and 1 crit damage up at every turn start. On top of the nice damage bonus, this 1 poise count really is useful, since her base skills are all either neutral or negative with regards to poise count if they all critically hit, so you'll want some way to help preserve it during the encounter. That said, this is also the hardest buff to get for reasons we'll get to in a bit. Index Nurse Father Yi Sang converts the last coin of each base skill into an unbreakable coin, and makes unbreakable coins deal 10% more damage. This ID really doesn't need more damage, but it's not like unbreakable coins and more damage is a bad thing. I just say Yi Sang is probably more useful on the field in this case, at least until we get the last 3 House of Spider IDs. Index Apprentice Don Quixote grants 2 poise potency on base skill use, and also makes her inflict 1 sinking on crit. The poise potency is really nice, it will ramp up her poise much faster for extra crit damage, and the sinking technically helps but isn't the main part of this one. Middle Apprentice Ishmael gives 2 defense level and makes her inflict 1 more burn potency with base skill effects, which is really nice if you intend to run her in a burn team, since more infliction is always good. Most of the things making Ishmael's effect more helpful, though, is that it allows you to kill her instead of an ally you would more likely want to keep. And the most useless one right now is Ring Apprentice Faust, who gives her shield equal to 10% of her HP. On an ID who already doesn't take damage when House of Spider's allies are on the field, it really only makes sense to want this buff once no other House of Spider IDs are left, which means killing Faust last most of the time. Planning your team around killing specific members of the House of Spiders is going to revolve around putting the one you want to die the most into slot 7 for the deployment order, since those ones are always prioritized by the skill triggered by her defense skill, and you really want to kill a Nurse Father first. But again, we'll get to that later. At the start of every turn, she will inflict Phantom Trace to a random enemy, as well as one additional enemy for every 3 House of Spiders allies that have been killed. Phantom Trace itself makes the enemy take 5% more damage from Ryōshū, but it also makes it so that when Ryōshū uses a base skill against them, said skill becomes entirely unbreakable coins and gains 1 final power, which is just generally good, but also makes the bonus effect from killing Yi Sang more potent. It also then gives her 1 entanglement, which you will want for her effects, so try to focus enemies that have Phantom Trace if you can. On top of that, before using that skill, she will use Inevitable Termination as an unopposed attack once per turn at combat start. Inevitable Termination is a 10 to 14 rolling slash pride skill with a single coin that gains attack weight to include all enemies with Phantom Trace as targets if it was activated by her skill 3. This skill is important because it inflicts a ton of Blade Trail for no effort, as well as dealing pretty high damage and inflicting slash fragility if it crits. It's the only way for Phantom Trace to be removed from the target as well, which means that waiting to hit multiple enemies with it is a genuine strategy. The optimal number of enemies to hit with this is 3, but it really shouldn't matter in the long run. Getting an extra skill pretty frequently is always a great bonus for sin generation and damage, and it giving 1 poise count means it doesn't even eat into your poise management. It's genuinely a fantastic free skill, and probably the best free skill in the game due to how often you get to use it. And we're still talking about main passives, now moving on to her Dihui Star's Blade, an effect that stacks up to 70 but only can increase by 25 per turn. It increases based on how much Blade Trail after image you've inflicted, and does things once it reaches 50, which now means it's a pretty good time to bring up her field passive, which gives her up to a 10% increase to crit damage, but also makes her inflict 1 Blade Trail on landing a crit, increasing the buildup of Dihui Star's Blade. It also makes the E.G.O passive of Great Trichiliocosm be able to trigger by targeting allies, which grants 1 crit damage up next turn if she kills or staggers the target. I wonder what that could be leading to. Getting to 50 Dihui Star's Blade for the first time will make her unable to retreat, but also cause her to use Rend Space String Connection at the end of the turn as an unopposed attack. It's a 14 to 20 rolling slash rat skill with 2 coins and 5 attack weight. On top of being just a great skill for damaging a ton of enemies, it also just removes her only stagger threshold from her health bar and grants her Shin Dihui Star. This particular brand of Shin gives 2 min and max speed, increases her crit damage by 10%, makes her take 20% less damage from unopposed attacks and unbreakable coins, and grants her 2 poise potency and 1 poise count on using a base skill, which will effectively make her poise remain infinitely due to how much she'll be gaining. You should be trying to inflict as much Blade Trail as possible to trigger this skill as early as possible, and there is actually a way to guarantee it by turn 3 with proper team building. But usually you won't get it before then due to the 25 game cap on Dihui Star's Blade. Every subsequent time, and after the first time, she's at 50 Dihui Star's Blade, it will replace her bottom left skill on the dashboard with Rend Space Echo Shear, a 16 to 18 rolling slash wrath skill with 2 coins and 3 attack weight, but can become up to a 12 to 27 with 6 coins based on her String Severance and Entanglement. On top of dealing just a ridiculous amount of damage, just an ungodly amount that is the easiest skill to break 20,000 damage with in Mirror Dungeon, it also permanently increases the min and max stack of Entanglement up to 2 times per encounter, which then feeds into her making all of her skills more powerful. It does consume 50 Dihui Star's Blade, so it isn't super spammable once all the House of Spiders IDs are dead. It's still really spammable if you still have more to kill, but honestly, most enemies would already be dead by that point, so I don't know what else to say here. It's the strongest skill in the entire game for damage, and is also AoE. The biggest thing to say about it is since we're still missing 2 Nurse Father IDs, it can't currently reach its full potential, but that will surely change with time. And lastly, her support passive allows the first deployed ally to gain 2 poise on using a base skill up to 3 times per turn. It's a genuinely good support passive in poise, but if you have this ID, you're bringing it, so who really cares? And that's 4 pages of my script, 10 minutes. I've been talking for 10 minutes about this, Jesus. Dedicated just to passives. So let's get to the point of her kit that I keep alluding to from before. Her defense skill is Phantom Step, a 4-14 rolling pride evade that gives some poise and poise count, but that part is irrelevant to the main effect. That is deployed the furthest back in the deployment order, and then activate Slay the Heavens Tiansha against them once they are no longer able to act for the turn. It targets an additional ally if she has 1 or more string severance, which is why killing a Nurse Father first is so important. Slay the Heavens Tiansha is a 16-18 rolling / wrath skill. It inflicts 20 Blade Trail, which in turn grants 20 Dihui Star's Blade, and then just fucking kills the target. This kill does not decrease ally sanity, so there's no functional downside outside of the ID dying. It permanently increases Ryōshū's base power by 1, but reduces her offense level by 1 for the entire encounter, and this effect can trigger up to 4 times, which is insanely good, functionally granting 3 clash power at the cost of 10% damage when fully stacked. It gives Ryōshū 20 SP, so using it on turn 1 doesn't slow your SP ramp up. In fact, it's often faster than attacking normally, and it grants Entangled Life by the amount of damage it dealt, which is just more damage for the entire encounter. The only annoying part of it is that it deprioritizes killing Sinclair specifically, meaning you can't get the second best buff very easily, but that can be overlooked. Normally I'm very against killing allies, but since this is so easy to control and provides such massive benefits to the team, I actually think it is an amazing addition to gameplay. And it is by far the most important part of her kit, since it is the best way to stack Dihui Star's Blade. Plus, you get to use it twice if you killed at least 1 Nurse Father, which means Honglu is looking very killable right now. Triple Slash is a 3-12 rolling / lust skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-17 based on her own poise and the target's burn and bleed. It has a variety of useful effects on the final coin, inflicting 2 Blade Trail, up to 4 more Blade Trail based on her entanglement, and then dealing bonus slash damage based on her entanglement. And the conditionals for power are really easy to keep up, making it functionally as strong as an unboosted skill 3 of the same number of coins. It is a brutally powerful skill 1 that will actually see a lot of use, and once she fully ramps up, it can gain up to 5 more power, just like all of her skills, but it really isn't likely for a fight to last that long. Triple / Echo Shear is a 4-16 rolling / pride skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 6-21 based on her own poise and the target's burn and bleed. It is definitely her least useful skill, since it doesn't inflict count where her skill 1 does, and doesn't inflict Blade Trail except on crit once her passive is fueled, which means it feels a bit awkward in her kit. It's still incredibly strong for damage, it just doesn't contribute to her gameplay loop very well, which is a little disappointing. Rend Space is a 10-22 rolling / wrath skill with a single coin that can become up to a 20-32 based on her own poise and the target's burn and bleed, and can gain up to 2 attack weight based on her own entanglement. It also deals up to 45% more damage from her entanglement, and inflicts a bunch of Blade Trail after the skill ends, being her best skill to build up Dihui Star's Blade if you exclude her skill that kills allies. It also doesn't inflict count, instead consuming enemy count for both burn and bleed to activate them for more damage, which makes her really like IDs that inflict both of those counts in order to not foil the game plan of those teams. God knows that the extra 20 damage per clash from bleed will outshine the extra 200 damage from this ID, even glancing at the target. But yeah, this skill deals a ton of damage, and outside of eating your count, there really isn't any reason to not use it if you can, since building up Dihui Star's Blade is really important for her gameplay loop. When it comes to E.G.O, she perfectly fuels a lot of them, not that she needs any of it. Force for the Flames is perfectly fueled and unironically worse than just using her base skills, but the passive will improve her damage a bit occasionally, and Fragile is fragile after all. 4th Match Flame just got boosted, and the additional wrath damage on the E.G.O itself is incredibly good in burn teams. The insane power to every 4th skill will trigger a lot more frequently for her, since she uses skills a lot, and using the corrosion for a bunch of free attack power up for a turn isn't super necessary, but it is really funny, and that just might be more important. Speaking of 4th Match Flame, let's talk about it briefly. I debated making a whole segment for this, but I feel like talking about its buffs at tier 5 will be more beneficial for now, and I can talk about the E.G.O as a whole in a later video. Let's say if I hit 1,000 likes on this video or something, I'll make an overview for all the Season 1 Battle Pass E.G.O. Anyways, Threadspin 5 is very expensive, which means that the benefits from doing so have to be very significant. When it comes to the passive, every 4th skill will also deal up to 20% more damage based on the target's burn if the skill is of the Wrath affinity. If that skill is an E.G.O, it will also heal 10 SP before attack if it has a positive coin, or lose 15 SP if it is a negative coin, which is genuinely a great effect, since SP variation is the main thing that makes E.G.O slightly less reliable than normal skills a lot of the time, plus it can't force you to corrode from losing SP from this effect. Both the Awakening and Corrosion have their damage conditional function based on the burn on all targets, rather than calculating the damage for each target individually, which is a pretty decent consistency bonus. They also both deal bonus wrath damage based on the target's burn, which is the biggest bonus to the skill that Threadspin gets. Lastly, the Corrosion becomes unbreakable and also loses 8 coin power, making it roll a 42 to 26 rather than a 42 to 18. It helps with consistency and clashing. It literally becomes the best clashing E.G.O in the game on Corrosion, and it's cheap enough to make use of it too. All that said, it's probably better to use shards and thread on other things. While the buffs are good, the ID in this video is so good that it really doesn't need this E.G.O aside from the passive, which is still the best part of the E.G.O honestly. Bonus wrath damage is obviously great, but the burn infliction and power is much more important, and you get that even at Threadspin too. She perfectly fuels Thoracalgia, and while Nebulizer really isn't needed for her own poise gain once she gets Sheen, it does help her allies quite a lot with poise should they need it, and Deep Inhale will increase her damage by a good amount. It's also another way to kill allies, but a far less effective one than found on her base kit. She also perfectly fuels Great Trichiliocosm, which is her only E.G.O that actually outdoes the damage of her base skills. Plus, since using her skill to kill an ally gives her Entangled Life, you don't need to use the E.G.O once in order to ramp up the E.G.O to its maximum capacity due to how Entangled Life works. And that extra 200% damage on the final coin is genuinely crazy. Plus, the extra crit damage from her passive will help to make her even more insane than she already is. And she fuels all but one type of Sin Affinity for Contempt Awe, which is also mostly useful for its passive, granting up to 2 free E.G.O resources per turn just from using her base attack skills, of which she will use a bunch, frequently at least 2 per turn, but Great Trichiliocosm is definitely better overall for the VoV slot. This ID can function in any team not designed to stack Sinking or Rupture, since she is the best DPS unit in the entire game. That said, your team building is extremely important for how to play her, since while she does handle fine on her own, you will find her much better by killing her House of Spider allies with her defense skill as early into a fight as possible. In every team except for Bleed, you will want Ring Nurse Father Honglu in deployment slot 7, just so you can kill him on turn 1. In Bleed, you need to kill Index Nurse Father Yi Sang instead. This allows your next use of her defense skill to kill 2 allies, and even if you plan to keep the other Nurse Fathers alive, she'll still gain another coin on her best skill. Plus, you need a backup unit to gain any new skill slots, which makes a team size of 10 optimal so that she can have 2 slots while everyone else has 1, effectively giving 1 extra slot while not losing any effectiveness from the rest of your team. Also keep in mind that this is subject to change depending on what the last 3 House of Spiders will give as bonuses to Ryōshū and what they do themselves. Any other ID I talk about next to her has to be in a slot that isn't 6, 7, or 8, and those units function as her full team. Additionally, this all assumes you do not use deployment slots 11 and 12 at all, though you can use slots 5 and 9 as 2 additional House of Spiders sacrifices if you want more buffs once we have all the IDs available. For a Poise team, you want to have Ring Nurse Father Honglu in slot 7, Ring Faust in slot 6, and Middle Ishmael in slot 8. That way you kill Honglu on turn 1, then kill both Ishmael and Faust on turn 2 in order to max out Ryōshū's skill slots by the 3rd turn. Other strong poise units to actually fight with her include Index Yi Sang, Index Faust, She Faust, Index Don Quixote, and Pinky Sinclair. The Index units are incredibly good damage dealers, with Yi Sang being what is probably the best ID aside from Ryōshū that is currently in the game. Pinky Sinclair is great because he deals high AoE damage, and while you have to team kill him last, he can die on his own, giving Ryōshū his powerful bonus effect. Index Don Quixote also deals absurd amounts of damage once in her unlocked state, and even gets buffed from Yi Sang being present. The main reason these 5 are highlighted is because they all deal slash damage primarily, meaning they gain the most benefit from Blade Trail and the slash fragility that Ryōshū can inflict. Full Stop Heathcliff, Pirate Gregor, and Sunk Merceau are great allies to bring along as pierce damage dealers who are all still incredibly reliable, especially in Heathcliff's case. Plus, if you want a team that doesn't kill Nurse Father Honglu once another Nurse Father is released, you can also bring Full Stop Honglu, who is still an absurdly reliable damage dealer that brings along an insanely strong ego in 2 Remain Oneself. If you have it, that is. If you don't want to manually kill allies, Ryōshū is still a fantastic poise unit. You can bring alongside the combination of Lord of Hongyan Honglu, Hierarch candidate Ishmael, and both C Heisho IDs for Rodion and Gregor in order to form a solid Heisho subteam that also focuses on poise to pair alongside Ryōshū. You can also bring Heisho Yi Sang to buff Ishmael if you want to. Pequod Ishmael is still a really good poise ID. You don't need her assist attack for Ryōshū, since Ryōshū will usually outspeed her, but it will let your other allies gain a lot more poise by using extra skills. Notably, Pequod Ishmael can also work well with her in a burn team if you're inclined, but bringing House of Spiders Ishmael is unironically better for that. And lastly, I wouldn't call it optimal, but you can run all 6 Blade Lineage IDs with her. They will be boosting each other a lot and form a really solid team, plus they are also capable of inflicting slash fragility to help with damage even more. And them being primarily slash means they also benefit from Blade Trail. Once we get a couple more House of Spiders IDs, you can probably sacrifice them to make this specific team better by having Ryōshū, actually have an extra skill slot with them. For a burn team, you want Ring Nurse Father Honglu in slot 7, then Apprentice Ishmael in slot 8, and either Apprentice Don Quixote or Apprentice Sinclair in slot 6, though keep in mind that if it's Sinclair, you can't use any other House of Spiders IDs aside from the first 3, at least unless they are being deployed later than him. Use Ishmael because it makes Ryōshū's burn infliction better, the others really don't matter in the long run. The best burn IDs that function with her are Heisho Heathcliff, Sunk Don Quixote, Hornet Merceau, and Liu Yi Sang, though using Nurse Father Yi Sang for his slot is also a viable choice, you just have to deploy him after Sinclair. All of these are either primarily slash damage or just absurdly high damage dealers, in Merceau's case. Sunk Don Quixote can notably work well with the boys team too, but it's definitely better in burn. Liu Yi Sang is great for helping with the SP of other allies that aren't Ryōshū once she's killed all of her allies, and Heisho Heathcliff is just an incredibly good damage dealer with a lot of coins. Ardor Blossom Star Faust has her E.G.O of the same name, which makes her inflict a very important debuff in Embers that also makes her the best burn inflicting unit available right now. Magic Bullet Otis also has her E.G.O of the same name, and provides Dark Flame for even better burn damage, which helps burn units to also contribute a decent amount of damage next to Ryōshū. Other good burn inflictors to have include Lamp and Firefist Gregor, who are both great for damage, with Firefist trading a bit of damage and Sin Consistency for more burn spreading capabilities. And the thumb units are also great here, being capable of inflicting solid amounts of burn and also Tremor Scorch to make burn more potent. They will certainly work great along with the House of Spiders thumb IDs we're sure to get in the future, and will probably make Burn Tremor a solid sub-team to add into specifically the team with this Ryōshū. But until then, we also have Liu Rodion, who is still solid but has definitely fallen off in recent content. And if you don't bring Pinky Sinclair to kill his ass, and once we have better Nurse Father to kill on turn 1, you could also bring Lord of Hongyan and Heisho Sinclair and Heisho Otis, if you want a solid Heisho core to cycle through in your burn team for a bunch of extra skills and damage. Finally, we have the Bleed team, which wants Nurse Father Yi Sang in slot 7, though that will change once we have any other option, then wants Index Don Quixote in slot 6 and Middle Ishmael in slot 8. Due to needing the ring IDs from Faust and Honglu in the main bleed setup, and those being House of Spiders IDs, you can't afford to bring Pinky Sinclair since Ryōshū will target and kill the members you actually want to keep around. Be sure to always bring Ring Faust and Honglu in slots 5 or earlier, so Ryōshū doesn't end up killing them as well. Bleed teams want as many ring IDs in them as possible, so Ring Faust, Honglu, and Rodion are all guaranteed to be there if you want that. They all deal incredibly good damage, and are the best inflictors of bleed currently in the game, which you will need since Ryōshū will destroy your count. On top of that, they all benefit from a variety of statuses on the target, and Ryōshū inflicts 2 that stick around almost permanently in Blade Trail and Phantom Trace. Merceau, Yiseng, and Otis are less necessary, but Merceau is definitely a great ID who helps Rodion become better, and Yiseng is still a very solid damage dealer. Bringing a small Kurikumo package is another great option, including Ishmael, Heathcliff, and probably Gregor if you want a third. They inflict very high amounts of bleed, and benefit heavily from the variety of statuses Ryōshū applies, just like the Ring do. You can run all 5 Blood Fiend IDs in a team with her, with Rodion and Merceau being the strongest 2, providing huge buffs to the entire team with just a little bit of lust resonance. Don Quixote and Otis are both great damage dealers, though they don't even come close to Ryōshū, and are mostly useful as mechanisms to take advantage of Blood Feast, and Gregor is a solid tank who supplies a lot of Blood Feast. Night Owl Gregor is also good here, being another ID who uses a ton of free skills against enemies, and his damage is absurdly high for a bleed ID. He's the optimal Gregor to run in any bleed team, and that'll probably be true for a while. And lastly, Chief Faust and Hornet Merceau can also be solid additions. They were mentioned previously and aren't the strongest bleed inflictors ever, but they synergize with Ryōshū, and Merceau is an otherwise incredible ID to begin with. And that's all I have to say about her. This is the most I've had to yap about a single ID so far, and good god is this ID both fun to team build with and incredibly satisfying to use. You can genuinely bring her in any team, and if she didn't legitimately require a photosensitivity warning, I would absolutely recommend you get her. She is the best ID in the game, as I said earlier. You can add me if you'd rather wait to shard her once she's available. Be sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot, and let me know what you think about this ID in the comments below. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.